The myth of Homo economicus. Classical economic theory is predicated on a bedrock assumption about human behavior. People make economic decisions precisely as they did in the 19th century. Which choice best sets up the information that follows in the paragraph in the passage? The law of supply and demand, for example, which holds that as the supply of an item increases, its price decreases, assumes that each shopper will strive to pay as small as possible for the item. From the 19th century until quite recently, there was this rational economic man, Homo economicus. He formed the basis of most economic models. Okay, so we are talking about this classical economic assumption that human beings behave rationally when it comes to economic behavior. And the example that's given here is that as the supply of an item increases, its price decreases. And this assumes that each shopper will strive to pay as little as possible for the item. We are trying to talk about paying something, right? So the best adjective for that is little, not small. So A and B are out. And as little as possible. So not D also. And now we need to decide a best introduction. So people make economic decisions precisely as they did in the 19th century, based on general principles, rationally and in their self-interest, whenever they choose which goods or services to buy. So if I'm talking about rational behavior, then option C would make sense, because that is what a rational economic man would do. How they behaved in the 19th century is out of context. General principles is vague, and D is also not indicating anything specific. From the 19th century until quite recently, there was this rational economic man, Homo economicus. Okay, so here, so I have to combine, right? So there was this rational economic man, Homo economicus, formed the basis of most economic models. This rational economic man, Homo economicus, and right. So now remember, there are a couple of things that you have to remember when you combine sentences. You should convey the meaning accurately, and you should be precise grammatically and otherwise. So there was this rational economic man. This is using too many words, so I don't like A. B is a good option. From the 19th century until quite recently, this rational economic man, the one that we have spoken about here, Homo economicus, formed the basis of most economic models. So this conveys the meaning and is precise. Economic man being the rational Homo economicus, this does not convey the idea clearly, right? So it's not C. And Homo economicus was a rational. So I want to talk about defining Homo economicus, which D doesn't do, right? So B. Economic models vary according to scholars in the emerging field of behavioral economics. Humans aren't rational. In the real world, people make irrational economic decisions all the time. Which choice provides the most effective transition from the previous paragraph to the information that follows in the sentence? A comparison is relevant. Another truth emerged. There was just one problem. Okay, so we are defining from the 19th century, Homo economicus, the rational economic man, formed the basis of most economic models. There was just one problem. Humans aren't rational, right? Because if you're talking about rational economic man, the fact that humans aren't rational is an issue if you're talking about economic models. So I like D. Economic models vary doesn't really convey the connection between the previous paragraph and this one. A comparison is relevant, again, doesn't make a precise comparison with the previous paragraph. And another truth emerged. Again, it's not a new truth, it's something which was always true, but it was acknowledged in economic behavioral studies now. In the real world, people make irrational economic decisions all the time. However, studies of savings behavior show that many workers choose not to enroll in retirement savings plans offered by their employers, even when these plans are ostentatiously in the workers' interest. Okay, so this is an example of how people do not make rational decisions, right? So I like, for instance, however, doesn't make sense because I'm not contrasting anything here. I'm not adding additional information, so not moreover. And I'm not repeating information in a simpler way. So in other words is also wrong. Now, many workers choose not to enroll in retirement savings plans offered by their employers, even when these plans are overwhelmingly in the worker's interest, like majorly in the worker's interest. Now, ostentatious means grand and over the top, so that doesn't make sense in the context of workers not enrolling in plans. Expansively would not fit the context here. Expansive is used in the context of a space or in the context of an idea that is huge, humongous, so it doesn't fit here. And extravagant is similar to ostentatious, so that doesn't fit here. So I'm talking about in a major way, majorly, overwhelmingly, the plans are in the workers' interest, yet they don't opt for them. Behavioral economists who have studied the issue blame the default effect, according to which people given a choice tend to favor the option presented as the default or status quo, when the default option, that is the choice that requires no direct action to be taken, is not to enroll in a plan, and many employees don't sign up. So when the default option is not to enroll in a plan, then I will have a comma here, because when this is a dependent clause, many employees don't sign up. This is the independent clause. So I'll have a comma here. This dash doesn't make sense because we already have a pair of dashes for this piece of additional information. So here I will simply use a comma to separate the dependent from the independent clause. This and is no wrong because I have when, and I can't start a new sentence because this part is not independent. However, when the default option is enrollment, that is when companies automatically sign workers up for a plan and require them to take direct action to unenroll, far more workers make the decision to save for retirement. Now here, we will need the dash, right? Because this is the closing dash for this one. I'm saying, however, when the default option is enrollment, far more workers make the decision to save for retirement. That's my main sentence. And this is when I'm explaining that option of enrollment. So I'm putting it between two dashes. So A is good. Here, this comma wouldn't make sense because I have to close the dash. So B is wrong. A colon cannot come here. A colon cannot come unless the part before the colon is a complete sentence. And a semicolon can only come between two independent sentences. As the example above suggests, behavioral economists not only analyze human behavior, but also identify mechanisms by which to change it. Sometimes the behaviors studied go beyond the strictly economic. In a 2013 study, Catherine Milkman and two co-authors examined what they called temptation bundling, tying a so-called want experience, in this case, listening to a favorite audiobook, with a so-called should behavior, one which they should be doing anyway. Okay. Now here I'm saying that these researchers examined what they call temptation bundling, and then I'm explaining that, right? Tying a so-called want experience with a so-called should behavior. So this is a definition of temptation bundling. So the way it's written makes sense. Also because the part before the colon is a complete sentence, so I like A. This tying cannot come before the colon because that's part of the definition. This semicolon is wrong and this comma is also wrong. And this semicolon doesn't make sense because I'm explaining what temptation bundling is. Okay, in this case, listening to a favorite audiobook with a so-called should behavior, which choice provides an example that is most consistent with the other information in the sentence and the paragraph. Okay, let's just read a little more. Milkman found that participants who limited their audiobook listening to time spent at the gym worked out 51% more frequently than the control participants. And 61% of those in the experimental group even purchased gym-only access to audiobooks. Okay, so a want experience is that they wanted to listen to a favorite audiobook, and a should experience would be that they should exercise at the gym, right? Because that is what the experiment talks about. So exercising at the gym sounds like a good answer. One that they should be doing anyway is a good definition of should behavior, but doesn't tie in with what the example tells me. So it's not a good answer. Yeah, this doesn't tell me the should behavior, right? Audiobooks is the want behavior. The should behavior is exercise at a gym. And C is also kind of defining the should behavior, but it's not being specific. So D is best. Okay, Milkman found that participants who limited their audiobook listening worked out more frequently than the control participants, and 61% even purchased gym only access. So I'm just using the simple past tense in the sentence, so this makes sense. This is past perfect, this is present, and this is again not past. So none of these make sense. Okay, that was the last one. 34. CCBDD, CCBDD 39, CDAADA, CDAADA,